Welcome to the session, which is on Australia New Zealand Reference Centre Plus. My name is Jay and I'm a trainer at EBSCO and I'm going to be walking you through this session. So to get started, I'd like to go through the key objectives of the session. By the end of the session, participants will be able to describe the key features of Australia New Zealand Reference Centre Plus, perform basic and advanced searches to locate resources, apply limiters and facets to refine results, access detailed records and full text articles, create search and publication alerts, use a My EBSCO personal folder to save, share and document articles, and locate help and support materials. So here is an overview of the database. So Australia and New Zealand Reference Centre Plus is a multidisciplinary database, and it includes a sizable full-text collection of leading regional and international magazines, newspapers and journals. And it has been specifically designed for colleges, schools and public libraries within Australia and New Zealand. With the key content, there are more than 650 full-text magazines and periodicals from Australia and New Zealand. And you'll also find there are unique full-text titles that do include Australia Financial Review and Choice Magazine, which is the region's top provider of consumer product reviews. In this next slide, I've highlighted some of the Australian and New Zealand magazines that are included. The databases in the database. And these magazines featured have ongoing full text access as well as back files. So some examples here, we've got Architecture Australia and Architecture New Zealand. And as I mentioned, there's Choice Magazine and also Choice Computer and many others as well. There's a lot of international magazine content as well, which I've highlighted in this next slide. So these are from United States and the United Kingdom, and they include such titles as New Scientist, Rolling Stones, and Time Magazine. And also, there's a lot of Australian and New Zealand newspaper content available as well, which I've highlighted in this next slide. So that's cover to cover full text access, and you can see what date that access commences from, and they're still ongoing up to the present time. So these can include the Sydney Morning Herald here, and there's also for New Zealand newspapers, the Dominion Post, and so on. I also want to highlight that you can access the database from a range of search interfaces. So usually the default interface is the EBSCO host, which comes with your subscription. If you subscribe to EBSCO Discovery Service, you can also enable the database from there. And also there is the Explorer interface. So that's a free interface, and it's EBSCO's dedicated interface for schools and public libraries. So that's another access point that you could enable for the database. And with each of these search interfaces, you'll have different productivity tools such as the autocomplete feature, text-to-speech for HTML articles, citation help, and Google integration. So without further ado, let's have a look at the live environment and let's run some searches. So here am I am going to be mainly demonstrating the Australia New Zealand Reference Centre Plus from the EBSCO host database, which is the default, would be the default for a lot of users. So depending on how you've optimized your settings, you'll either see the basic search on the home screen or the advanced search on the home screen. So it really just depends on your audience and what would make most sense to them. So I've enabled mine for the basic search. And so from here, I've got my search box and I can perform some keywords and execute that search. But before I go ahead, I want to just point out a few features of the search options feature. So if I click on that down arrow, it shows me all the search options that I can enable before going through with my search. And I just want to point out that there will be some defaults that you will have enabled from your administrator account. So the way that I've got mine set up, my main search mode is to find all my search terms. So that means if I entered something like climate change, it would have an invisible and in between to indicate that I want to have both of those search keywords within each of my results. But there are other ways as well. So these are all the different search modes available. I can click on this arrow as well, this question mark here, and it will go into more detail about what the search modes indicate if you'd like to view that at any point. And I also want to point out that there are expanders as well that I could either have as a default. So my default setting is to apply equivalent subjects. And what this means is that it's going to utilize a mapped vocabulary to add precision to the unqualified keyword search. So if I have the word climate change, it's going to map that out to other vocabulary terms that are equivalent. So that can be really useful to connect words back to subject terms within the database. And I also want to point out that there are a couple of other expanders here as well. So we've got the apply related terms expander, and this option expands results to include true synonyms and plurals of your search terms. So by having that on, I don't need to search variations or to search for equivalent synonyms. That will do that for me. And then there's the search within the full text of the article. So if I enable that, it allows the search to look within the keywords to look within the full text of articles, as well as abstract and citation information. And as I scroll through, I also want to show you that there are some limiters I can also add on to my basic search. So I could limit, for example, to full text so that I only see results for full text. I could also limit to peer reviewed if I wished. I could also indicate that I only want to search within a certain publication. So if I only wanted to search the age, for example, and see results only from there, I could add that in. And I could also indicate, I guess, the date range of when I want to view results. So if I wanted to have a date range of 2018 to 2022, I could do that. And I could also indicate months if I wanted to be more precise. And finally, there's the option here I've got to indicate the number of pages. So if I'm an audience, like a user that only wants to see maybe at most 2 pages or less than 2 pages, for example, depending on how much time I have, I could also indicate that as well. So I'm going to keep on the limiter for full text, and I'm going to leave my settings as they remain. And I'm going to do a search for rapid antigen test. So as mentioned, I've indicated find all my search terms, so it's going to locate all those search terms in the results, and then I hit the search button. Okay, so I can see here I've got over 1,000 results that are showing according to how the expanders I've used and the limiters I've used. And from here, I can actually go into my refined results column, and I could maybe add a few more limiters or a few more parameters around this search if I wish. So again, as I mentioned, there is the date range option here. So I could limit that date range focus if I wanted to. So let's say I only want to limit from 2020 to 2022, and I could do that if I wished. I can also limit by source type. So these are all the source types that are coming up as a result of my search terms. So at a glance, you can see the kind of content in the database. I can see there's my domestic newspapers, my international newspapers, some academic journals, international academic journals, and some magazine content coming through as well. If I want to limit this to domestic newspapers, I could tick that box there, and it will then update. And I'm only seeing domestic newspapers. So you can see here the Dominion Post from New Zealand and so on. So it's in italics here, the source. And then from there, because I've narrowed my focus to newspapers, my other option available is then to narrow to a certain publication that is a domestic newspaper. So I've got all these different publications that are indexed in the database. And let's say I want to narrow down to the Sydney Morning Herald. So now all my results are only coming from the Sydney Morning Herald. And if I want to just browse and sort according to the newest date available, so what's been the newest release, I can click on date newest under relevance, and then I can start to see from the date newest and start to go through those results. Now, if I didn't have too much time at the moment to look for each of these results, but I want to add some to my folder, I could then start to add to a folder, and then I could go into my folder and start to read through that. I have other options available as well. So under the share button here, I could add maybe the first 40 results to a folder, and then I can keep doing that as I go through pages of results. I could add the search itself to a folder. So maybe I want to go back and look at the search itself. And if I want to create an alert on this search, I can also do that. So I can click the create an alert email alert, but do bear in mind, I do need to be signed in. So I would need to create a My EBSCO account or sign into a My EBSCO account if I've already created one. So I'll just quickly show you that now. So this is the personal user sign in. So if I don't have an account, I'd go sign up. And I would just need to fill out this information, and I can create a unique account and start storing things to my folder, including creating search alerts. So this email alert would then go to my inbox of the email that I've selected, nominated, and I then start to see the most, I guess, recent articles as part of this search alert. And then I can go back into the database and access them. I can also create a permalink to this search as well. So if I want to share this with my users, maybe I'm promoting out the resources in newsletters, in blogs on my website, I can also grab the search link itself and then indicate to my users to come back into the database. So it's almost like you're creating like your own little browse categories and promoting those out depending on what you think would be of interest, of general interest to your users, or if you're creating more tailored reading lists for users, if you've got requests from users to assist them with finding some search results, you could sort of help perform a search and then give them that link to them so they can come in and access from there onwards. So the next thing I want to show you is when you click the title of an article. So I'm going to just cancel out of my source type just for a moment and out of my publication. Okay, so let's just say I go into this article here, so I can click on the title, and the newspaper results will be available in HTML full text. If I click on a magazine result, that might be available in either HTML or PDF, depending on the publisher, what the parameters around that. And I just want to point out here, so for this newspaper article, you can see the citation information. And I can see here that the author's name has been hyperlinked. And what that indicates is I can actually perform a search by clicking on that author. And I can see if they have other articles written by them published in the database. And the other thing I can do is if I want to go directly to the source, I can click on that as well. And I can then go through other issues and articles from this source. So in this example, Canberra Times, and I can look at other articles. And I also want to point out that if I wanted to create an alert on a particular publication, so if I know a user of mine or my users want to keep informed of a particular newspaper, I could create that alert for them or encourage them to create an alert. And it'll go to their inbox as soon as there's a new issue available. Or you can even grab the permalink to the publication page and share that across, and that will take them back here, and they can then browse through issues or even just search within the publication. So I wanted to point that out as well. I also want to point out with HTML full text, I've got options to translate in different languages. So if I do have users who do speak or read in another language and there's a HTML full text available, they can translate the page across to that language if it's available in the drop down. We've also got a text to speech available here, so this listen feature. And if I click on that, I can then listen to the audio being read out of this article. So that can be really useful for users who may have visual impairment, may have print disabilities, may be struggling readers or prefer auditory learning, or they may be developing proficiency in English, and so it might be helpful them to listen rather than to read. So I just want to point out as well in the menu, they can change the reading language as well. So there's some Australian accents available, British accents and American accents. And I also want to point out there's the download MP3. So they can download and listen offline as well. couple of other features in the menu here I want to point out as well is that they can use the page mask. So page mask is if you've got users who it's easier for them to read a small portion of the text at a time, then it'll only highlight a portion as they scroll down. So that can be really useful as well. I want to also point out this tools menu to the right-hand side that is within the detailed record. And this provides your users with options to save and store the article and some additional features alongside that. So to point out, there's the Google Drive integration, allowing your users to save the article to Google Drive. There's the option to add to folder. So this is either the temporary session folder, or if they've signed in, they can access and save that for future within their folder options. There's also the print, email, and save options. So to save those articles or print them out or even email them out. There's the cite option as well. So if you have users that want to cite this information for a paper or an assignment, then there's different citation styles available and they can copy and paste those in, but they do need to be careful of the capitalization, dates, punctuation, and so on. So they need to still consult your library resources for the exact guidelines. There's the export function as well. So they can save citations to a bibliographic software manager. So there's options here like EasyBib and EndNote, Noodle Tools, and so on, if they use those softwares. There's also the create note option. So this is a notation tool. It allows users to take a note on the article and then save that to their MyEBSCO folder for later viewing. And I also want to point out the permalink. So this is a direct link to the detailed record that you can share across to users to promote, encourage use, and to make, I guess, direct links available to them where you think that would be appropriate. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the new search again, and this time I want to quickly go through the advanced search functionality with you as well. So I want to point out here that with the advanced search, you can perform a more sophisticated search. So with anyone who's a confident researcher at your library, or even as librarians, if you want to sort of do more targeted searches as well when assisting your users, you can enable this advanced search. So I've enabled it so that it has multiple fields to search. So these are the guided fields that make the advanced search a bit easier. So let's say I'm looking for articles on how social media is linked to the self-esteem of teenagers. So in the first row, I might start typing in social media. And you can see here it's starting to predict using the autocomplete what else I might want to type in as well. So I want to type in a synonym. So I'm going to use the or. I want to type social media or social networking. So if I start typing in, but you can see here the autocomplete's predicting what I want. So that can really help me get to what I need quicker. And it can also help me by recommending me different types of searches as well. So I'm going to keep it as social media or social networking. In the second line, I'm going to type in self-esteem, but I also want to look at self-perception as a synonym, and the or Boolean operator means I'm using those interchangeably in the search, and the and means I'm connecting my concepts together. And the third row is because I'm looking specifically at teenagers, and I want to point out here that the asterisk, I'm using that to retrieve various alternative endings. So this is a truncation symbol, and it can be a good strategy to use. And then I'm going to type in adolescence, but again, I'm going to use my truncation because I want to type, say, adolescence, adolescent, adolescence, and so on. And then I'm going to perform my search. Okay, so it's a very specific search. So you'll see less results, but they're more targeted results. And so I can start to go through my list and I can see, you know, if there's any search results that I want to click on from here. So I'm going to click on this one. This one comes from an academic journal. And I'm just going to click on that, the title. And I want to just show you as well that when I click on results from journals, I get a few more features available in the detailed record. So as well as being able to search the authors and being able to search the source, I can also search subject terms listed here. So, and then I also want to point out as well the PDF full text feature as well. So with a lot of academic journal content and a lot of magazine content, you'll also be able to view the PDF full text. So with the PDF full text, I can then download the PDF. So I can up here in the blue banner or within the PDF viewer itself. And I've also got options to zoom in and then also to zoom out if I want to look more closely or if I want to look at the content as a whole, because there might be some diagrams or pictures that I want to see as well. I've got my contents available here, so I can just easily jump to a page or I can jump to a section as well. I've got my tools menu that I have in the detailed record here. And also with the PDF, I want to point out that I could also search other articles within this journal. So this is Journal of Population Research, and this is dated March 1st, 2020. But if I want to see articles from the same issue, I could click on another article. So here and so on. And I can also click on another issue if I wished. So just some things I can do from there that I wanted to point out. Okay. So the next thing I want to point out as well is the field searching option. So I'm going to go back and refresh my page, and I can do that by clicking on the logo or new search. I'm going to pop back into advanced search. And let's say now I'm looking for articles that are either authored or co-authored by Maggie Beer. So what I could do is I can type in Beer and then Maggie in my first. And then I'm making this more targeted. So I want to use my fields to the right. And I'm targeting this. I only want to look in the author field for her name. And then I can go search. And so now it's showing me all these articles from Maggie Beer that's available. And so some of these are coming from Australian Women's Weekly. There's a Sydney Morning Herald. So this could be really useful if you're looking for a particular author. It can also be useful if you're looking for a subject as well, and so on. And so then I can then go into the article. I could go straight to the PDF full text, for example, if I wanted to. And being a magazine, it'll give me that high glossy resolution and replication. And I can see images and so on. So that can be really useful, especially if you're working at a public library and you're looking for things for a general audience. So the next thing I want to point out here is the thesaurus. So up here in the top menu. And so with the thesaurus, we can use that to browse subject terms that relate to content within the database. And these subject terms are created by subject specialists, and they're assigned based on article content. And again, it's another way to allow you to create a targeted search. So I'm going to look for marry. So I enter that in my browse field here. So this is a really good way to determine what subjects are indexed and what are not. So that term as it stands is not indexed, but it has recommended me terms that are. So it can be really useful for me to see what is actually indexed. But let's say what I'm after is actually marry art. So I'm going to use the recommendation here. And so I've got a few options available to me. I can tick on marry art, and you'll notice that when I do, I've got the explode option that ticks automatically. And this explode option, what it does, it'll explode your term. And that means that the search will retrieve all references indexed to this term, as well as references indexed to any narrower subject terms. So I'll show you what the narrow subject terms are. If I click on marry art, it tells me, what are the broader terms and what are the narrower terms. So if I explode that, it's going to search this, but also these. So what I might do is I'm happy to go ahead and do that. So then after selecting my term to add it to the search, I'll go add. And I'm using or because I want to search these different terms interchangeably. And then I can then run my search. And so now I've got a more precise subject search happening, and all the results are pertaining to marry art, maybe marry textiles, and so on, depending on all those different terms that are being searched. And so if I like this search and I want to share it across to my users, I could then grab the permalink I could also add it to my own folder if I wished. The next thing I want to point out is the Publications tab. So the Publications tab allows me to search for the magazines, the newspapers, the journal articles, and so on that are indexed in the database. So let's say I'm looking for Choice. So Choice magazine, I can type that in my browsing box, and then I can see here that there's Choice as the first result, and I can click on that. It takes me to the publication details page. So I have information here about what the full text availability is, how frequently it's published in a calendar year, and then I could browse through different issues and articles. As I mentioned earlier, I could also create an email alert if I want to keep up to date with new issues, and I could grab the permalink if I want to share that across to my users as well. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is the Images tab. So the Images tab allows me to search the image collections. So I've got here the image collection and the image quick view collection, and a bit of information about what the image quick view collection is. So the image quick view collection allows me to see images associated with articles, and the image collection is a database of images coming from sources such as Getty Images and so on. So I want to have both of those collections searched. And let's say I would do a search on quokkas. So I just type quokka, add in, click search, and then I get my results. So I can see images of quokka. So this one's a quokka feeding, and I can click on that, for example. And I could then use that image if I wanted to in an assignment, as needed. So the images can only be saved and shared for educational purposes. And if you do want to share across images, the best recommended way to do that would be to grab the permalink, maybe save it to Google Drive and so on. And as I go through the results, I can see where it's being picked up. So these results come from the Nature Picture Library. I can also see results coming from articles as well as I go through. So I've got charts here and graphs and so on as well. So I could click on those. So the next thing really quickly is the folder options again. So at the end of the session, I can go back into my folder if it's only the temporary folder, and I could either print, email, save, or export what I've saved for that session, just to make sure I still have access to it. Or if I want to store the items for a future session, I would just need to sign into my EBSCO folder. Okay, as we get close to the end of the session, I also want to point out EBSCO Connect, which is your centralized support and training portal for all your EBSCO databases. So it provides you with all the tools and resources that you need to take full advantage of all the products you've got and services from EBSCO. And you can find the EBSCO Connect link at the bottom of any of your database interface pages. So I can just click on it at the bottom here, and it takes me straight through. And I also want to point out, so there it is now. And if I have an account, so it's free to make an account, I could also sign in. But from this page, I can go into product help, for example, and say I want just general information about EBSCO host. So I'm searching for EBSCO host and I want to know about all the different features and how they work. I could start to look through those results, like for example, how does EBSCO's autocomplete feature work, and so on, like my EBSCO host folder. The other thing I could do is I could just run a search. So if I'm looking specifically at Australia New Zealand Reference Centre Plus or Reference Centre, I could type that into my search and it'll have all the relevant results, including a promotion kit that I want to point out. So a promotion kit is really useful for you to highlight key features of the database. So you have things like product buttons. So I'll show you the product buttons really quickly. I'll return back to the social media kit in a moment, but there's the handout that you can provide and maybe also use to guide through with your users. And there's also a poster that you can promote around the library, the physical library as well. So there's some really good resources there. And I also wanted to point out the social media kit that I mentioned. So once you download this, it is a zip file. In the zip file, you'll have an Excel spreadsheet, and that just gives you some really good pointers of how you might promote the resource on your social media channels. So here are some examples of posts you could use and the appropriate channel to use them within. And also in that social media kit, you have accompanying images that you could use. And I'm just quickly scrolling through these now when highlighting those resources on social media. And so that's why I've just got this quick example of how you might put that all together. So you might have a short synopsis of the database and how to use it. You might even have a link here to a video or to instructions, and then the image and so on. Thank you once again for coming along and joining me. And I hope you found this session worthwhile. And I hope to see you again at our future sessions.